Now we're going to hear from Suzanne. She's a passionate Davis Dyslexia, Executive Functioning Skills, and Autism facilitator. She's based in New York. She decided to become an educator at the age of 15 after being inspired by a phenomenal science teacher in high school. This teacher, named Mr. Wilson, appealed to all learning types and helped both atypical and neurodiverse students feel welcome, activated, and motivated to learn. Suzanne's earned a BA in English, double secondary teacher certifications in English, German, and MA in education. Her university education was done in Germany and the United States. Suzanne is a full-service Davis program facilitator, offering Davis reading mastery, math mastery, and attention mastery programs, as well as Davis Young Learner programs for 5 to 7-year-olds. During the pandemic, she received her second license to offer Davis Executive Functioning Skill Concepts for Life program and the full range of Davis Autism Approach programs. And now Suzanne's going to tell us about these programs.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. For over a decade, I have had the privilege of working with dyslexic and autistic adults and children, guiding them through the pleasurable and evidence-based Davis Dyslexia and Davis Autism Approach programs. So what sets Davis approaches apart, you might be wondering? How are they different from other treatment options, and why does it matter? Oops. Why it matters? Well, 20% of us are dyslexics. That's 1 in 5. 2.8% of us are somewhere on the autistic spectrum, and interestingly, those who are incarcerated, who I heard people talking about today, 50% of them are dyslexic. What is dyslexia? This slide shows Ronald Davis, the engineer of the Davis programs for dyslexia and for autism. And this is a picture of him in 1983. He offers this definition of dyslexia. Dyslexia is a product of thought, talent, and a special way of reacting to the feeling of confusion. So as you may notice, Ronald Davis is talking about thought, a way of thinking, which is predominantly visual. And when I say visual, I mean 3-dimensional, like this hedgehog here that I borrowed from my mom for today. Davis also mentions the strengths and talents associated with this visual way of thinking. That's the talent portion of the definition. The special way of reacting to confusion is to become disoriented, which is not a focused state. However, it is a great place for being creative. The ability to disorient and be super creative is important for us all. If we did not have these creative minds, we would not have many of the inventions, sculptures, art objects, architecture, engineering feats that we enjoy today. What sets Davis apart? The Davis programs are strength-based for visual learners. They are creative and hands-on using plastilina clay. They are self-esteem building right away. The Davis Dyslexia programs are strength and talent-based, which means that they utilize the way dyslexics think. Facilitators like me guide participants in correcting their own challenges, which is a fundamental difference right there. This is very empowering, refreshing, deeply respectful, and releasing for dyslexics, who are often made to feel dumb, though they're actually extremely intelligent, creative, and insightful. This slide shows a big red umbrella, and that is signaling that dyslexia can actually be seen as an umbrella term for many conditions. Dyslexia is not related to intelligence and can occur in severe, moderate, or mild versions. People with dyslexia have their own individual profiles, strengths and weaknesses, and no two people are the same, like none of us are the same. The impact of this way of thinking, let's say the visual way of thinking of dyslexia, is different for each person. And I believe that's environmental, how they're treated in school, at home, if people understand that they're actually amazing people, or if they're made to feel lesser than. Dyslexia does not only affect literacy skills, but most of what we know about it relates to its relationship to language and literacy. And here comes the umbrella sentence. Dyslexia may overlap with related conditions such as dyspraxia, which is the balance and coordination challenges, ADD, ADHD, dyscalculia, which means not having trouble with math. There's also acalculia, which means people who can't do math at all, and autism. The good news is that there is a Davis program for each of the conditions listed here. As was mentioned before, there's the Davis Dyslexia Correction Program, which is not only language-based, but also addresses the dyspraxia, handwriting issues, and the coordination and balance involved not only in large motor skills, but in writing. So dysgraphia is handled with that program. The Davis Math Mastery Program for the dyscalculia or acalculia. And beyond these are week-long intensives, which are followed by pleasurable follow-up work. Beyond these week-long intensives, there's a program called the Executive Functioning Skills Program. Anyone who has any of these conditions pretty much needs executive functioning skills. They're called the Concepts for Life, which can be done intensively, but preferably in little chunks, which is very good for professionals. I actually get about 50% professional adults. I work with college-age students. I work with children. I work with all ages, but for some reason I get a lot of adults, which I love as well. Screening assessments are done to ensure that the individual is a candidate for the one-on-one program. This is based on their way of thinking, which is either visual, spatial, or kinesthetic. To illustrate this visual way of thinking that I'm talking about today, I'd like to invite us all in this room, and I'll do it too, to close your eyes for a moment. Give yourself a chance to think of a cat. That would be a small animal with fur, 4 legs, kept as a house pet or to catch mice. Were you able to conjure up a picture of a cat in your mind? Was it easy? And if you could not conjure that picture up in your mind, that simply means that you don't have the thinking ability to conjure up pictures in your mind. And that's not a problem either. You might be considered more of a linear thinker if you can't get a picture in your mind. None of that is a problem. The problem comes for dyslexics who are strong picture thinkers when they try to then look at something 2D. You see, I mentioned before that the visual thinker is a 3D thinker. What that means is that the image in their mind is 3-dimensional. So what happens when a 3-dimensional thinker looks at a word on the page? If you treat the word the same way as you're treating a 3D object that's in your mind, that's when you get that famous flipping of the letters, which, by the way, not all dyslexics flip letters. It's one of the most stereotypical things I hear. Oh, you work with dyslexia? I used to flip letters. No, it's not. There's so much more. But you can see that this is a problem. And if anyone in here has ever tried to read with a young child who is trying to read, and for example, you on the first page, you have a word like the word the, or is, or were, and you go over it with them. And then you turn the page, and on the next page is the exact same word, and they still don't get it. And you say, wait a minute, we went over that before, and we've done that word, 50 times, and you still don't get this word. And it actually looks like they are seeing this word for the very first time. It could be that they are seeing a different word, because you see there's 40 pieces of data, which is actually quite interesting. Now I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes one more time and try to get a picture for the meaning of the word cat. Sorry, we did cat. Let's do the. Can you get a picture for the meaning of the word the? Was it easy? Did it work for you? Well, I'm going to venture to guess that nobody in this room got a picture for the word the. That's because most of us don't know what the word the means. We use it, we know it, but do we know what the meaning is? Picture thinkers need a picture. That's why they stumble on those small words. The word the means that one there, which is the ball near the self model, or the one talked about. So the Davis Dyslexia Correction Program, just a minute while I get my notes here, for resolving confusions starts with focusing tools to control distorted perceptions from disorientation. So we talked about disorientation. That's the other side of confusion. That's when you lose focus. And when you're in that state, your perception is distorted. There's an emotional regulation tool, because when you are making mistakes all day long, you are going to have an emotional reaction, frustration, anger. You're also getting very tired. It's not easy. There is an energy regulation tool, because when you're making errors because of distorted perceptions, your energy level tends to go up with your emotional response, angry with yourself, or, oh no, not again, that sort of thing. And that's all coming from the disorientation, because you've been triggered on something. Then, using plastilina, the participant is guided through correction of their own triggers of confusion, which could be letters, punctuation, math symbols, math function symbols, you know, whatever program they're coming in for. And the end of the program, so the end of the 1 week program, is that they start doing the trigger words. This right here is a trigger word, meaning it doesn't have a picture, and therefore it's going to trigger confusion in the mind of a dyslexic. And so when you model the meaning of the word and go through the symbol mastery steps using the tools, it eliminates the trigger, and therefore it eliminates the problem. There are 219 trigger words that are done after the program, along with specialized reading exercises and balance and coordination exercises, by the way, utilizing sensory balls. That is a big part of people who are coming in with dyslexia or any other condition for that matter that was on that list. So once they complete the 219 trigger words, that is 75% of the language, and their reading problems are resolved. Again, screening assessments are necessary to ensure that participants are motivated, willing, and an appropriate candidate for a program. That's the reason why they're so highly successful. I'm just thinking of a story of a wife who sent her husband in for a program. And he got there and said, you know, I want to do a program. My wife told me to come here. I said, sir, if you're not interested in a program for yourself, you know, it's not going to work. So just save your money. I mean, his wife was saying, go over there and take that program. But the people, you know, people who come have to, you can't just drag a child in. I have to assess for motivation, because really it has to be an intrinsic want. So now we're going to actually switch gears and talk about autism. What is autism? So autism is a developmental condition, and challenges may include communicating with others, sensory processing overwhelm, and frustrations with relationships. The spectrum ranges again from mild to very severe. And look at this next sentence: autistic individuals think differently. Yes, they too are picture thinkers, big picture thinkers. If anyone knows Temple Grandin, she wrote a book last year called Visual Thinkers. If anyone's interested in visual thinkers, especially surgeons, that book is amazing. You will have your questions answered about a visual thinker. It is amazing. And it's so well researched. She must have a team at the university where she's a professor, getting all the research together. It was impressive. Autistic individuals also can think in feelings. They can think non-verbally, in patterns, with numbers and with colors. Every individual is different. Of course, there's non-verbal to very, very high level Asperger. It used to be called Asperger's. Now that's not happening anymore. They have changed that. It's all under the umbrella of autism now, ASD. So the Davis Autism Approach is a 3-part program that takes an individual through the Piaget developmental stages. These include individuation, identity development, and the relationship concepts. This program is best done in smaller chunks rather than a week-long. This program is really not that best suited for a week-long program. So it can fit into busy schedules, college students, adults, busy parents who need to bring their parent, do the program with their children. There is also a variety of program delivery methods. You can do it online or in person. Ever since the pandemic, we've learned how to do things online. So it is very flexible that way. The start of the program is utilizing a sound, which is a natural orientation inducing technology, or otherwise called orientation sound. And this sound is used several weeks to several months, depending on the level of disorientation of the individual. There's also a differentiation between being disoriented, meaning you have been focused and you disorient, and a person who's nonverbal and non-functioning and in their own world and just completely not interacting or engaging in the world. They would not know what disorientation is because they've actually never been oriented. So this will actually orient those individuals so that you can actually start working with them, which is very exciting. So you can really work with all levels of autism with this program. The other tools involved would be the other self-regulation tools I spoke about with the dyslexia program, which would be the energy regulation tool and the emotional regulation tool. But here with the autism program, we're working with individuals who have, very different profiles, and they also need a helper in some cases. So it's sort of a family program. The tools can be used anywhere, anytime, once they are in the individual. So identity development is a very important stage. So once the individuation has been achieved, the identity development portion, and you can think about it like this. A person comes in for a program, an autistic individual, and they have a certain identity. What does that say? Oh, yeah, I'm almost finished. They have a certain identity, and what we do with them is give them an upgrade to their identity. So what it is 44 life concepts, and I don't have a whole lot of time, so I can't go through exactly how that works. Then the last portion is the relationship concepts. The recommended reading for the reading program is The Gift of Dyslexia. The math, ADD, and handwriting problems would be The Gift of Learning. And Autism and the Seeds of Change is the book on autism. I would have loved to bring some clinical research slides from Dr. Jacinta Ryan in today, who did send me some last minute of research she's done the past 10 years, and it hasn't been published yet. I was going to give you a sneak peek, but it didn't work. If anyone wants to see those, they can contact me through my website there, dyslexiaworks.com. And with all that in mind, I would like to thank you for your attention.